Well, hi there ABC. I trust this video finds you well as we navigate this new ground of level 2, and no doubt some of you will be enjoying some of the freedoms, schools going back and businesses opening up and some of those travel restrictions being lifted. But there's also too some limitations that have come into play which make large group gatherings especially but a bit more challenging. And so as the ABC leadership team, we've been really wrestling with some of those practical implications of what that might look like, and we're certainly finding it a bit tricky, a little bit tougher than last time around. And maybe that's been your experience too of this current level 2. You know, on the one hand, we sort of knew what lockdown was going to be like, we knew what to expect, we knew what we were in for. But then on the other hand, there's been just some extra limitations which have been probably more restrictive, maybe more intense than what things were last time. And so maybe for you, I don't know, maybe this lockdown experience has just been business as usual. You know, you've been at work, it's been pretty normal, it's just another day, another dollar. Maybe you've been retired and things have been pretty much the same there. Perhaps it's been a little bit different. Maybe you've been a working parent and had to pick up some schoolwork responsibilities with the children, and just want to give a shout out to the hardworking teachers, the school teachers who have had to pick up some extra things in the last few weeks. Maybe you've been really enjoying the DIY opportunities at home and getting out and getting those odd jobs done, but you're a bit more frustrated now that some of those materials and supplies are hard to come by. Perhaps you've been in a bubble of one, and that's just really been the same as things were normally, but I guess it's really accentuated some of those loneliness and some of the isolation that you've acutely felt. Perhaps you've just had some health issues, or you've been missing your friends, or you've been busy baking or doing all sorts of stuff, and maybe you've just been, like me, you've been confused with what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do during the lockdown alert levels. The other weekend, the kids and I went for a bike ride and just around town, around some of the tracks, and we put on our masks and biked around, and by the time we were halfway around, we were just cooking. It was just so hot wearing those masks and hard to breathe, and we got back home and found out that you needed to be wearing a mask when you're out and about, but when you were exercising it was okay to not wear a mask, which would have been helpful for me to have figured that out beforehand. But anyway, I'm still learning, as we all are, I suppose. But I guess as I've talked with many of you and had some conversations and those sorts of things, it's really apparent that our experiences of lockdown have been quite different. And as I've thought about this and reflected on this, that it's really simply because all of us are quite different to begin with. You know, there's a lot of people who have a wide range of backgrounds, perspectives, attitudes, focuses, priorities. We're all different, and yet we call ABC home. And in the middle of those differences, we're also living through difficult times, uncertain times, unsettling times. And so with those difficulties and with those differences that we have, one thing that really encourages me, really heartens me, is that Jesus brings us together. He is the one who holds us, his church, together. In fact, if you read in the New Testament, you'll see that Jesus is the one to whom we belong to. According to Paul in Ephesians, Jesus is the one who completes us. And so, as I've been thinking about these last few weeks and tracking through them, I take a lot of comfort in the words that Jesus shared with his followers as recorded in Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 and 29. Let me read that to you. Jesus said this, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." Now, I think it's important to note that Jesus gives an invitation here to all who are weary and who all carry heavy burdens. But it's also important to note that Jesus knew what that was like. He was a tradesman. He had a background as a carpenter. He was the son of a carpenter. And so he knew what it was like to work with materials, to work with tools. He knew the weariness of a hard day's work. But he also knew what it was like to find and experience the weariness of ministry. And for 3 years he traveled, He knew what it was like to sleep in different beds, to live on the road, and to be under the microscope, the spotlight, to have the attention of the crowds on him. But beyond that weariness of everyday life that Jesus knew and that we too experience, he also knew that we can experience a burdening of our souls. That our souls can be anxious with uncertainties around the future. That we can be worried about those extra stresses and additional responsibilities that we have to carry. And that we can worry about things that are simply beyond our control. But I want you to look again at that invitation that Jesus gives. And look at how he starts it. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens." And if we go to Jesus, we find rest. We find refreshment. We find restoration because he offers us himself. And in the midst of the uncertainties and the changes that we're experiencing, I draw a lot of comfort from that. That Jesus is our rock, our strength. He's the one who holds us together. He's the one to whom we belong. He completes us. But even more than that, he offers us himself. He offers us rest and refreshment and restoration because he offers us himself. And maybe, friends, you need some of that rest right now. You need to just kind of draw on the strength and the sustenance and the support that Jesus offers. Well, if you do need that and if you want that, can I encourage you to look to Jesus? This is how the author of the book of Hebrews puts it. This is his encouragement for Christians. "Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to this life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people, then you won't become weary and give up." You know, I really love that encouragement to keep our eyes fixed and focused on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. And he knows what it's like to walk in our world. But even more than that, he offers us hope and joy and peace and grace and rest because he offers us himself. And I think ultimately that's what we need in the midst of these unsettling times. Our businesses, our work, our schools, our homes, our families, our friends, our relationships, our neighbours, they're all kind of in a constant state of change at the moment. Uncertainty, unsettled. But in the midst of all of that, Jesus offers us. He invites us to come to him. He offers us himself. And when he offers us himself, we'll find rest and restoration and refreshment. We'll find rest for our weary souls. So that's simply it. That's my prayer for you this week, that you would find God's generous grace, and in the midst of that, you, as fixing your eyes on Jesus, you would experience the rest that he offers for your soul. Hey, we've provided some discussion questions which you might want to spend some time talking through after this, but yeah, really pray that God blesses you heaps this week, and we look forward to finding out what is in store next week for us. Catch you later.